your host on Lonestar Collective Podcast tonight. And tonight is my guest is Jarell Wall with the Gentleman Quinns. Hello, Jarell. How you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm good. After seeing that intro, it makes me want to visit Texas now.
Yeah, that's some nice scenery of Dallas there that we've got there. Just for everybody that's listening tonight or watching, Jarell and I met online last year, and I interviewed, and you were actually a guest on my podcast last year, right?
Honored. It was one of my favorite podcasts. Absolutely.
It was a great time, great conversation, as I know it will be again. Tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what Gentleman Quinns is, and how y'all got started.
Absolutely. I'm gonna start by just saying thank you for inviting me again. I'm always
Absolutely.
interested in seeing what's going on in other states, and it's a lot going on in Texas, and you're at the forefront of it. So I definitely appreciate it.
You bet.
But yeah, I'm Jarell Wall, CEO and creative director of Gentleman Quinns Blunt Company here in Denver, Colorado. We hand roll cigar style pre rolls, premium pre rolls out here. Kind of a full curated process when it comes to our products. I do advocacy work, I'm at least leaning into the advocacy work here when it comes to social equity in Colorado. And I do a lot of design work. I used to be a television producer, so that's kind of where I'm at in the industry in terms of pushing the creative sides forward
Absolutely.
and making great products. Absolutely.
So when did y'all get started out there in Colorado?
So I got started out here. Gentleman Quinns got started in 2015. It really started as a limited release product at a dispensary that I was doing marketing at. So basically, all my business partners all worked at that dispensary. We started it as, just something to get folks into the doors because at the time it was still medical. And that's when it was more dispensaries. Now, folks come to Colorado now and say there's still a lot of dispensaries, but back then it was even more dispensaries. And at that time, it was the conventional thinking was weed sold itself, so we didn't really have to do a lot of marketing, put weed pictures in a magazine and that's about it. What I started to notice was, shops needed differentiators in terms of products and things that bring folks into the store. So my business partners and I, who would eventually become my business partners, we developed a product over that summer in 2015, and we convinced the business owners to just let us try it on the shelves. We actually had a whiteboard, we had a prototype, we actually did the whole full thing to just present it to those guys, and they were like, "Hey, try it," and we tried it, and the story starts from there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell our listeners a little bit about when y'all were getting started, because Colorado has a unique thing with their laws. You talk about blunts, right? Everybody
Absolutely.
thinks tobacco. Explain to our listeners what you can and can't do with tobacco and marijuana in Colorado.
Yeah, so all Gentleman Quinn's products have no tobacco in it. It's expressly prohibited within the recreational rules out here to use tobacco in any form of a product. So the name blunt comes from, wrapping marijuana in a cigar wrap back when it was the legal days and it was one of the easiest ways to, consume your cannabis. There's definitely different times where you had glass that was, outlawed and you could get arrested for that. So you could just go to a gas station and get a wrap and just put your marijuana in it and you're good to go. We wanted to, make sure we brought what the original emphasis of what the industry was into the industry. We wanted to make sure we have products that was reminiscent of the culture of cannabis. And at the time in 2015, there were no blunt type products on the market. There really weren't a lot of pre-roll products on the market.
Sure.
Recreational dispensaries and the vertical integration model where a shop basically grows the weed and sells the weed, marks it, does it themselves. They were making like little cone joints that it was an afterthought product. So we saw there was a need in the industry to have a blunt product, a branded pre-roll product, and generally just branded products in general into the market. So we saw that as an opportunity. And the guy that rolls the blunts, we now know him as Gentleman Quinn. He rolled us a very fat blunt, and we said this is something that we gotta investigate. So over the course of time, we figured out what type of wraps would work, what would give us the right look for a blunt, and we end up with hemp wraps. So non-tobacco. So basically, our blunts are 100% cannabis. So that's kind of a bit where we started at. And again, tobacco itself is expressly forbidden within our rules out in Colorado.
Sure. So it's a unique story that you told when I interviewed you before. about the whole search for the right wrap.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, at the time, uh, obviously cones and joints and things like that. Those are a little bit more prevalent. Rice wraps and things like that that don't have any tobacco. So again, we wanted to find something that was a little bit more reminiscent of what the tobacco wraps would look like. At the same time, a little bit thicker, holds a little bit more weed because paper doesn't hold the amount of weed that we wanted to put into a pre roll. So
Sure.
we tried, just about everything. We tried banana wraps, corn husk wraps, cannabis wraps that were just made from fan leaves that were meshed up and they were completely green. And the company that did that, they were really cool with us, but it just didn't taste to where we needed it to. And really, at that point, it allowed us to realize what manufacturing in America in general, looked like because there weren't many paper manufacturers. And as hemp, came online, there weren't many textiles being made of hemp in that direction. We definitely have a few more things in terms of clothes, some compost, some things to make buildings and things like that. But in
Sure.
terms of paper and things like that, it wasn't being done stateside. So we were able
Yeah.
to, get in contact with, over a lot of long nights of, crazy time zone differences, getting in contact with folks out in Amsterdam who, they had a existing hemp industry, agricultural side of things. So, they had developed some hemp wraps and they were just going to trade shows, showing folks, hey, we got some hemp wraps. Do you guys want to try these out here in the US? And, we were the ones that bid on it. They were able to work with us in terms of getting things specific to what we needed them for. And, that's kind of where we found our hemp wraps. And, not anybody can get them. These aren't anything we just get off the internet or Amazon. We see other companies that do that, but we have our own formula specific to us.
Okay. Cool. So I did this to you when I interviewed you the last time. I'm going to do it again because you skipped past it so fast. Tell us the banana wrap story.
Oh yeah, so we'd go online to try to find different things, and we found one that was like a banana wrap from this European. It was in Britain. They had these banana wraps that had this weird little filter at the bottom, and it was just basically like you just pack your flour down and whatnot. We called these guys, and they were close to going bankrupt, and they were just saying we'll just ship you some. We just pay for the shipping. We'll ship you a bunch, and they shipped us about like 2 boxes of it, a lot of them, and we were thinking, okay, maybe this is the direction we want to go in. Until we opened them up, and the taste wasn't quite right. It just wasn't what we wanted to do. And at the same time, we were kind of developing the hand rolled style of things, and these were already like pre made. And just kind of looking forward now, the company seems to be doing well. I'm seeing them in all sorts of dispensaries and stuff like that. The exact same things, but for us, it was about the taste and making sure we could taste the flour and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine that would mask it somewhat.
Oh, a lot. You'd be surprised.
No, I can imagine. Believe me. So, tell us a little bit about your packaging. You have some unique packaging as well.
Absolutely. Uh, what we wanted to do was what happens a lot out in Colorado, or really just industry wide, because of so many restrictions on having child proofing and stuff like that. There's auxiliary companies that make packaging for folks. It's a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper to just go with that. We wanted to do everything the hard way. So we wanted to make a packaging that was reminiscent of the cigar industry, the cigar style humidor boxes. And really, the idea of it was we wanted to make a product that showed that we respected the customers because by and large, we go to folks' houses and they'd have a bunch of, stuff that looked like medicine tubes that where people would put cannabis, but they wouldn't throw them away. So we thought, that would be a cool marketing space to have something that, generally folks either don't throw away or they take home when they go out of state. And if we had something very unique there, folks would just keep it. It would make them be prompted to want to buy more or just even show it off to folks who would get them to want to buy more. So we were able to, find a product that was yeah, find some boxing. Actually, we created the boxes ourselves. We went to Hobby Lobby, found some pencil boxes that kind of look like cigar boxes. We stained them, we painted them, we got in contact with the sticker company, and we just did that. And it was really, like I said, to kind of mimic the humidor style. Now,
Sure.
fast forward 7 years later, we're actually working with a cigar manufacturer in Nicaragua that actually hand creates those boxes for those type of company for the industry. So they're making some for us specifically, and we're really happy with that production. And it's all
Cool.
handcrafted the entire way through.
Yeah, that's one thing that's nice about your product. From start to finish, it's handcrafted. I like that. I like that.
Absolutely.
Well, we're coming up on our first sponsor break. Y'all stay tuned for us to come back and talk a little bit more about what Jarell is up to in Colorado about with social equity and other things.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Oak Cliff Cultivators is a sponsor of Texas Cannabis Collective and the Lonestar Collective podcast. Oak Cliff focuses on quality assurance with their hemp products while providing customer service to help you discover cannabinoids to meet your needs. Their product line includes hemp flower, pre-rolls, CBG tinctures, edibles, Delta 8, and merch. For more information on their products' quality or to shop online today, visit oakcliffcultivators.com or contact them at info@oakcliffcultivators.com.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast, distributed on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, and much more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. Here is this week's host, Jesse Williams and Austin Sam Hariri.
So welcome back to the Lone Star Collective. I'm your host, Chris Crisolia, and my guest tonight is Jarell Wall of Gentleman Quinns of Colorado. Jarell, welcome, and glad to have you.
Hey man, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be in big old Texas. That's it.
Well, we hope this goes out to a little more than just Texas, but yeah, everybody in Texas should be listening and watching. Tell us a little bit about what all you're involved with the social equity scene out there in Colorado. That's a busy thing I'm hearing.
Yeah, so there's, I definitely preface this by saying there's other folks in the space that's doing more than me. I own a business. I'm the CEO, so I got to focus a lot of my time there. But, I definitely lend myself to, helping folks that are from my community, underserved community, and the communities that haven't really been able to join into the industry in the way that the industry's matured into. Because I remember when I got started, there wasn't a lot of help in terms of business accelerators, understanding how to get through the process. There was a lot of folks that would charge you to do your applications, charge you to find all sorts of nonsense, and
Yeah.
hey, folks still do that. That is what it is. But for me, I kind of saw the pitfalls in that. I saw that for myself, I didn't have a lot of capital, but I had a lot of, had a really great team. My partner, Austin Flume and Gentleman Quinn. We were able to, just kind of do everything ourselves. And even with that, I realized that folks needed a lot of the information that I had, that I was able to kind of just get out of the ground myself. So when it comes to social equity, I work with a few different groups. I work with the state in terms of rulemaking, the city of Colorado in terms of, rulemaking and things like that, assisting with, our expertise in the industry, what things will work and what things we would like to see, changed based on what the regulators and legislators can do. So, that's a little bit of, my involvement there, just trying to help out the best I can and lend my voice.
Yeah. So where are they at in Colorado? I know it's been something that's been worked on for some time, is social equity. So where are we at? Do we have any progress?
Yeah. So in terms of it depends on what you mean by progress. So there's
always
there's two sides of it, right? There's a licensing side where the city and state, they realize, hey, we don't want to get caught with our pants down. More states are coming online. More states are starting at the very beginning to say, cannabis, maybe the war on drugs, and maybe this punitive nature that we've had cannabis over the last 70 years may have helped put a hand in destroying some of these communities. It may have helped taking away some resources out of the schools and things like that. maybe we should do something to it, do something for that, because, as a state, we're making billions of dollars on tax revenue. And we can sidestep, whatever the general funds are or the General Assembly is, and we could just overtax this industry, make new schools, A, B, and C. So maybe we should try to carve out a space where folks who are disadvantaged by illegalization can get in. So on one side, the state made some different rule recommendations. They allowed for, after COVID, when dispensaries were saying, we need drive-through windows because folks can't come in, and we don't want to get anybody. We want to keep the industry healthy and whatnot, in the way that the cannabis industry was considered an essential business.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to have drive-throughs. We want to have delivery. We want to have folks coming in curbside pickup and things like that. So as restrictions started to lift a bit, these dispensaries and folks in the industry said, well, we don't want to go back. We already showed you we can do it. We already showed you we have the enforcement, the surveillance, the safety to make sure that, delivery and things like that can be safe, and it could be more accessible to folks who aren't near dispensaries or in rural parts of the state, or just not even accessible to just come into a dispensary. So we can make it happen. So the state said, well, in that case, if we're going to make new licenses, let's designate that as the backbone to social equity. Folks who are from disadvantaged areas, based on whatever their criteria was with the state, folks who had arrest records in cannabis, and things like that, they be eligible
Okay.
for those licenses. On
Yeah.
top of that, I was in the room where we actually pushed at the governor to make a cannabis fund that would go to social equity licenses with startup fees and things like that, recommending that if you're going to get a license, well, how about we, lessen the burden of costs and things like that. So, those are, on one hand, some of the things that have happened. On the other hand, not too many municipalities, because what happens with regulations within states, the state has an overarching regulation. Hey, you can get a business license, but the city has to regulate how you do business in their cities.
Yeah.
So not every city got on the social equity bandwagon. And, to preface that, not every city in Colorado or not every municipality or county even has recreational cannabis allowed,
Yeah.
Still a lot of prohibitionists out there, right? So some states aren't even on, some cities aren't even online, but the cities that are online, not many of them have jumped on to, have allowances for social equity. So that just kind of leaves Denver, as one of the, might be the only one that's doing social equity work. So they made
Really.
it so that for, at the time, I believe it was 2020, for the next 3 to 5 years after that, only folks with a social equity designation can get a delivery license, which means they could deliver to customers. And then for the next 7 years, only social equity applicants can get new stores, cultivations, and manufacturing facilities. So, all those things sound great. In a way, it's been, I don't want to say it's been a disaster, because some folks have licenses. We definitely have more folks in the space speaking up. But the problem with it is, the main accessible license is, delivery. So a lot of folks want us to get into the delivery side, but that is completely handheld by the dispensaries. The dispensaries have to, want to get a license themselves, partner with the social equity applicant, and from there, that would allow those social equity applicants to start delivering. Well, if it's a 3-year moratorium period where only social equity licensees can get that license, and after that, dispensaries could do it themselves. Well, in Denver, they showed the data. Most dispensaries just kind of elected to just say, we can't do it right now. It's too expensive. All these different things that they weren't saying during COVID.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and hey, again, I'm a manufacturer, so I have a little bit of a bias to it. At that point of the delivery, they didn't allow manufacturers to be B2C, and that's something I'm pretty passionate about, because it only leaves us with one distribution lane, being the dispensaries. So
Mm.
that's not a equitable industry in general, regardless of social equity. So we're still brick and mortar. We're not really e-commerce, other than just ordering ahead. So those are all the general issues with social equity. I think it's, the city of Denver has, going to the city council, and they wanted to make delivery for social equity applicants indefinite. And that's a good step. But we still have to hammer on other municipalities to do something, get to some banking. Understand that the issue isn't really just that we don't have licenses, it's about finances. Who has the money to get into this really crowded, really saturated, really expensive industry, and education pieces.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, for my fellow Texans here, and anybody else who might be watching or listening, uh, explain what are some of the things that you need to happen in regard to social equity, in your opinion, so that maybe we can, when we get around to legalizing here, we do it the right way, or at least
Absolutely.
attempt to do it the right way.
Well, I'll definitely say I would obviously recommend some folks who have a social equity license. I was pre social equity, so I was burdened with the high fees, and I still got to pay close to 10K a year just for my license, and I'm just a manufacturer, so fees are still pretty high. But I definitely preface this by saying there's some folks that are doing a whole lot more uh, advocacy in the space, legislative work in the space that can speak to this even better than me. But on my end, just being an operator in business right now, I'd first start to say that we need to have states addressing what their stance is with the war on drugs. What do they think it was? What do they think their role of it was? And how do they think they need to remedy that? Because in any state that's becoming legal, is just kind of the idea that, oh shucks, we didn't know it was anything bad with it, or we didn't. Oh shucks, we didn't know that enforcement of cannabis would lead to all these unintended consequences. We just
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Now, there's definitely a lot of data a lot of research, a lot of documents, a lot of news clippings and whatnot to show that it was definitely a race-based attack on different communities and whatnot. And, going against resources A, B, and C, right? So we need states to kind of just be honest about that. Because what I don't like to see is a lot of states using funds for cannabis to go to law enforcement. I mean, there's a general fund for law enforcement within every state, within every
Yeah.
city. But
Yeah.
then you tax us to enforce ourselves. You put
Mhm.
surveillance so you could just check our surveillance. We
Yeah.
have more stringent surveillance or more stringent regulations than alcohol, tobacco, even banking. So those are the things I'd say needs to start. Let's just come to the table, say what it is, and then from there we could kind of be able to kind of parse back what the issues are. So outside of that, outside of coming to Jesus meetings and things like that, I'd say that we need to address banking because when we have states that come online independent of federal legalization, there's still banks that are a little hesitant,
Yeah.
and they have their own bottom line to deal with themselves. They don't want to get caught up by the SEC thinking about money laundering A, B, and C. So as much as we can harp on the banks, we understand their position. So we definitely need to have at least each state should do something when it comes to allowing banks to have a more equitable space for businesses to get loans or things like that. Even just putting money into a bank without being charged crazy fees. So
Yeah.
that's where it starts, banking and financing and things like that. Then it comes to zoning, where these businesses are going to be at, who's available to go to one of the nicer parts of the city and buy one of these buildings and things like that. Are you going to allow certain communities to get uh, spaces in their own communities to have manufacturing facilities or stores and things like that? So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. I definitely say one of the easiest things these states can do, just have folks like myself, folks of the minority communities and things like that, disadvantaged communities, to come to the table, invite them there, tell them about what they think they're going to do with legalization and how we can make this more inclusive for everybody to have a voice with it.
Sure. Sure. Let's hear from the people that are actually impacted by it. I
Absolutely.
agree with that 100%. Uh, one of the things that I've said, and I may have told you this the last time we talked, but I've always said that one simple way they could impact social equity in a very large way, aside from reducing fees and things like you've already pointed out, would be to simply set up what I call a social equity, a drug war social equity SBA, Small Business Administration.
You did say that, and that's a great idea.
I thought I might have said it before.
That's a
Where
great idea.
you take 1 to 2% of the revenue that you're already making. Don't add another 1 or 2%, right? Just take 1 or 2% off the top and put that into that program for people who've been arrested for simple possession and had their lives basically ruined because of it. Where if they want to start a business, they can go there instead of having to go through the general SBA, which is, I've been there. Nobody wants to do that. you know, and then all you have to do is show, look, how you were impacted. Okay, boom, here you go. low interest loan so that you can get that business started on top of the lower fees, et cetera, et cetera. I think that'd be a wonderful way to do it.
I think that'd be a great way to do it. I think the problem is again, states just don't want to be honest about, you know, who were affected, how were they affected, I don't
Yeah.
want to get on here and bash law enforcement, but there's definitely a myriad of stories over the last 70 years of, like you said, folks' lives being destroyed. Or even when legalization started to happen, folks would, when it was quasi legal out here, you get stories from previous dispensary owners where folks cops would just come in, break down the doors, take their flower, burn it up, and then come back and said, "Oh, we were wrong." And then you're out of your materials, you're out of your inventory and things like that, and you're not getting any of that
Mhm.
money back. Things like that. Folks just getting their ass beat by cops for no reason. Strip and search and all these sorts of different things that were done by the state. So I think the issue is if we were being honest about it and the states were being honest about it, you know, they would be able to say those things. These are the things that we did, some type of reconciliation. And then from
Mhm.
there, we'd be able to, parse out how we could make these things more equitable based on, being honest about what we all were with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely something that needs to be a part of it, in my opinion. But I mean, even beyond the whole social equity conversation, I mean, you look at the fees that a dispensary, number one, they won't reopen licensing here in Texas for some odd reason. But you look at the fees that they pay, and I can't quote you exactly what it is right off the top of my head,
But it's a
but
lot.
I know it's over $100,000 to have a license to be a medicine producer for the teacup program here in Texas.
Wow.
And then you're limited to what products you can provide. Flour? No, that's not happening.
You need some CBD.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, they did in 2021. They increased the THC percentage, and it's deceiving. And I think I've explained this to you the last time we talked. It's extremely deceiving. The 0.5%, the 1%, and all that. But when they increased it from 0.5% to 1%, first and foremost, you got to remember that's by dry weight, not actual percentages. Right? It's insane the way they worded it. But because of that, we're able to produce our providers here in Texas are able to produce 25 milligram THC gummies, just the same as you can get in Colorado or California or Washington, anywhere else, right?
Right.
And the people that are on the program are actually reporting. Most of them are reporting excellent results. Not all, but you know what? Not all are in Colorado either.
Right.
There are some people that it's just not going to work for. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. Nothing's the perfect miracle for everybody. But the one thing that is a consensus, I think, with when it comes to cannabis, and I prefer the word cannabis myself,
Absolutely.
but the one thing I think that people really don't understand, is that a lot of variables are involved in it as well. It's a lot about what your diet is, depending upon what you're trying to do with it. You're right.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of other alternative factors that play in that, believe it or not, would actually play into some pharmaceuticals as well if you really listen to what your doctor tells you when they write you that prescription.
Oh, for sure.
If you have a good doctor, anyway.
And there's a ton of cannabinoids that are yet to be either discovered, figured out
Oh, I know.
exactly. It's hundreds of them out there. So we find something new
Well,
every day.
beyond what's yet to be discovered, there's a ton of what's yet to be discovered about the cannabinoids we know about that exist.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're still learning new stuff every single day.
Absolutely.
You're always seeing new stuff out there. So, I mean, it's just mind boggling why we're still fighting this battle here in Texas and a few other states still, and at the federal level. I mean, it just, I mean, at this point, like we say all the time, the cat's out of the bag, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, how many states are there now? 36, 35 or 36?
The way I think about it is I usually just say this saying, if something doesn't make sense, that's the point. There's somebody benefiting from it. There's some folks that, like I said, I'm privileged to, have paid to play. I have a business license. So I'm able to, since I do some of the regulation stuff, I'm able to be in some of these rooms, city council meetings and things like that. And you'd be completely surprised who is saying some of the, talking points against marijuana, even though it's illegal.
Well,
It's a legal commodity
Absolutely.
here. It's ridiculous. So, if it doesn't make sense, that's the whole point,
I,
So
I
it's
was I was just fixing to go to there on that and that part of your story. Let us get ready to take this next short sponsor break, and then we'll come back and talk about these invites that you've been receiving here lately.
absolutely.
We'll be right back. The Lone Star Collective. I'm your host, Gramps, and my guest is Jarell Wall. We'll be right back after this short message.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Oak Cliff Cultivators is a sponsor of Texas Cannabis Collective and the Lone Star Collective podcast. Oak Cliff focuses on quality assurance with their hemp products while providing customer service to help you discover cannabinoids to meet your needs. Their product line includes hemp flower, pre-rolls, CBG tinctures, edibles, Delta 8, and merch. For more information on their products' quality or to shop online today, visit oakcliffcultivators.com or contact them at info@oakcliffcultivators.com.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast, distributed on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, and much more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. Here is this week's host, Jesse Williams and Austin Sam Hariri.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Collective podcast. I'm your host, Gramps Chris Grisolia, with my guest, Jarell Wall of Gentleman Quinns of Colorado. We're talking about social equity and his big-ass blunts that they hand roll in Colorado. I still love that name, Gentleman
And the
Quinns.
mini ass blunts. We have a new product, the high
That's
class
right.
mini
You
ass
do have a
blunts,
new product.
absolutely.
Tell
A
us
mini.
about that.
Yeah, we noticed at the top of the year, we were doing our thing, but we noticed that within the pre-roll market, a lot of folks were kind of doing smaller joints that are like 0.5 grams cannabis, just to be, walk out the street with. And we said we could do something like that with our own, process, but we can't do 0.5 grams. So we wanted to do some 1.25, still the size of what we would like a blunt to be, but they're miniature. They're adorable. The way we market them, we have some pretty incredible artists that have helped us with the designing the process as well as the marketing of it and whatnot. And that's our second product right now as we kind of open up our portfolio of products. And the Mini Quinns High Class Mini Ass Blunt are one of our best sellers this year.
Oh, really? I know I've seen them. I've seen the marketing. It's some great marketing work going on there. So right before the break, you started to talk about some of these city council meetings and other areas where you've been invited to sit in. Tell us a little bit about that and what that experience has been like.
Yeah, so I noticed when I got into the industry that, the state would ask either stakeholders or folks that worked in the industry to be a part of regulating meetings and stuff like that. So once I got my business license, I said, I have an affinity for government. I'm from an underprivileged part of Indiana, and I know the reasons why that is because we're not really at the table a lot of the times. So I wanted to take the opportunity in marijuana to, just at least start listening in and give a voice where I could. And kind of see this is one of the first few states that became legal. So I've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of the lawyers that helped craft it, a lot of the business owners that helped craft it. So I said I wanted to just be a part of that tapestry of folks who kind of doing that pioneer work. So I've been invited to science and policy meetings in terms of how we test products, how we find expiration dates for products, what type of things that are needed for quality assurance for the customer. I was
Sure.
able to be a part of meetings about social equity, working with the governor's office, working with well, I can't really say the mayor's office. We don't do a lot in the city of Denver with the mayor's office, but we have our regulatory body in the city of Denver, excise and licensing. They invite me to a few different things, and in different trade groups that I'm in, I get invited to city council meetings and things like that to see what rules are about to be coming down the pipeline, see how different city councils vote on them, and just kind of see what the detractions are. How the wheels of the government work. So my experiences in it has been it's been mixed because part of it, there aren't a lot of folks like myself, folks of color, black folks, that one have a lot of these licenses, and two, if they do have a lot of these licenses, behind the closed doors, they either have gotten quieted it to a certain extent that they don't want to participate, or they don't really care enough. And not just saying black people, a lot of black people care, but even just all business owners, right? They
Yeah.
get into these
Yeah.
rooms, they get silenced, or they just don't really care enough. They have a proxy there to be their legal aid in these meetings, so they don't really participate. So
Yeah.
I saw that it was a necessity, especially when social equity is on the table and we don't have a lot of folks in the room like myself. And there are
Sure.
a lot of folks in the room that have been more affected by the drug war than myself. You know what I mean? I've never been arrested, but I am from a city in Gary, Indiana that's, over policed and things like that and deprived of a lot of resources. So, I have my voice, but there's more voices that need to be there. And like I said, just in terms of my view on it or my experiences, like I said, it's been mixed a bit, but I have, been able to meet some good folks, and, it's a long game, right? The industry is going to be here with the hope for the next 150 years or whatever, however long the country is going to be around. We want cannabis to
Sure.
be one of the staple industries in American society. So, it's a gradual thing to steer this ship into the right direction. So as long
Yeah.
as I'm there and bringing more folks along, I can't complain too much.
Yeah. I don't think there's any stopping this train at this point. They
Absolutely.
may keep slowing it down in places like Texas here,
Or
in the
Indiana.
or Indiana. Absolutely. And I say that because it largely depends on what happens in November. If we keep electing the same people, we're going to get the same results. And
Absolutely.
that's what I'll keep trying to preach. Look around you. Do you want the same things to keep happening? Then keep electing the same people, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And of course, that's at the state level. Federal level is a whole nother story. We just need to wipe them clean and start over.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. But so tell us, since we're still working at it, we're getting ready to charge into a new session here after the elections, and we are going to have the week after the November elections, our state reps and senators here will start pre-filing bills and whatnot. So tell our listeners, what are some of the things we can do in reaching out to our lawmakers now, even before they maybe even get elected, because we know probably which ones are going to get elected at this point. Pretty good chance anyway. And in my opinion, we could reach out to both sides of the aisle at this point
Absolutely.
until we figure out who does, right? With the same ideas. So tell our listeners in your terms, your ideas of what maybe we can do here in Texas different, or in addition to what we've been doing, that might reach our lawmakers better.
I mean, I definitely say folks need to talk to the Texas Cannabis Collective, because you guys have been doing a lot of grassroots work. You've been in those rooms. You know exactly what's going on in terms of what's going on in Texas. I can't really speak on what's going on out there specifically. I could just say, involvement is really big. It's a lot of it's a burden. Doing anything in government is a burden. Getting a new school,
Sure.
getting running water is a burden. Folks folks that want to take your resources and put them somewhere else and things like that. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort and stress and whatnot. But it really is about being involved, like you said. An election's coming up. We got an election coming up here. That's getting city council members and a brand new mayor coming up soon and whatnot. People need to vote. They need to understand, one, it's an American right, and two, it's a necessity to get things you need, or to at least understand the process of how the world you live in right now is the way it is. So, as a free society compared to other countries and things like that, we need to exercise that. Like I said, speaking to folks that understand the process, normal and things like that, that have pushed legalization over the goal line. And generally, if you don't have a ton of money to just toss out to these really shitty politicians, I mean, the conventional way that it really works is just keep pestering them, calling them,
Absolutely.
emailing them,
Absolutely.
going to their it's your city building too. You could go there. Just go there and knock on their door if you can, do whatever
Yeah.
you can to, articulate in the best way that you know how by speaking to you guys what things need to be done and whatnot. And at the same time, open a bridge to these other states that have been legal. Obviously there's a new states online right now that is still figuring itself out. It's definitely good to be in contact with states on the East Coast, new states, Nevada, New Mexico, Illinois, Michigan, Massachusetts. But it's also good to be in contact with states that have been doing this even longer. The Californias, the
Mhm.
Colorados, the Washingtons, the Oregons,
Mhm.
to a lesser extent, the Washington, D.C., so whatever they
Yeah.
got going on there. It's
Yeah.
good to be in contact with folks that actually have crafted it because by and large, at this point, you definitely have a lot of capitalists that want to make money and doing things, but you
Sure.
definitely have a lot of advocacy that's being done within law, folks that are lawyers and whatnot that have already crafted stuff that, are able to come to different states and just let them know how it works. So, just opening the communications and, just being involved in that way.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing that I keep saying to everybody is because I get a lot of pushback on my page on Facebook and stuff where I'll post, come out of the closet. If you support it, come out of the closet. Let's talk about
Absolutely.
it. Tell everybody. Let's be loud and proud, right? And I get a lot of pushback by people who say, well, it's easier said than done. It's like, Jesus Christ, people, I'm not telling you to go out in the middle of the street and fire up a blunt.
Absolutely.
Or
I am.
well,
I
okay.
am.
Well, I know you are, but that's because you see profit margins. But I'm not telling you to grab your rig and go out there and do a dab in the middle of the driveway, or walk up to their office with it in your pocket.
Absolutely.
I'm just telling you to tell them how you feel. There's
Absolutely.
nothing illegal about telling somebody what you believe and how you feel.
Absolutely.
And that's all we mean by come out of the closet and get involved. We're not telling you to go blow smoke in their face, but it's hard to get that message across where people understand it, I think.
Well, you know what? I'd add to that, and I'd actually even uh I'll half push Colorado on this, but I'll push every legal state that has recreational and even the ones that have medical. Uh, Places like Pennsylvania, places like Illinois have made cannabis usage protections for employment. And one of the
Mhm.
biggest issues is, folks don't want to lose their jobs. I used to work corporate. I used to work in television. We used to work in tech, and
Yeah.
I worked with companies that had government contracts, and their thinking is we don't want to upset what that relationship is. The government has a
Mhm.
bottomless amount of money, and we want to make sure that we're able to get big mergers. We're able to get these contracts for different technologies and things like that. So, again, it's all about being pragmatic and understanding the complexity of things, right? So I
Mhm.
understand that, but at the same time, it's limiting not only our customer base, it's limiting what we can do in terms of banking A, B, and C. But if folks are worried about getting fired, worried about getting profiled, worried about losing their kids, their mortgage, all of these things, is going to keep them in the closet. So, I definitely understand it. And, like I said, it took me a long time to be able to be completely proud and come out and do these podcasts because I had to have a split personality, right? I had to have the corporate personality, you know, do the things that were right to use, move up that corporate ladder to get more money to go into my business. But at the same time, if folks don't know who you are, they're not going to be interested. They're not going to be engaged in your business. So that hurt me for a long time. So right now, I just hit the flag. Hey, we just need to have cannabis employment protections. Across the board. Colorado did do
Absolutely.
something. Governor Jared Polis did pass something a few weeks ago. More power to him. It was great. We could definitely go further. And not to toss that aside, he did make some cannabis protections for workers and whatnot, and
Yeah.
licensees. That's a great step. But when it comes to Illinois, they basically did it across the board. You cannot be fired for what you
Yeah.
do at home. Now,
Yeah.
if you work for a business and that business expressly forbids something in terms of your behavior at the job, that's fine. But when it comes to things you're doing at
Sure.
home, it should be off limits. Have more
Absolutely.
people being able to speak about these things.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I think that even the lawmakers are starting to realize especially in the legal states where this is starting to happen. Uh, they're starting to realize that, cannabis is not something that like alcohol you can do and 8, 9, 10 hours later, it's gone from your system.
Right.
Even though the effects of it are gone in a couple of hours, it stays in your system where it shows up on a test for,
Right.
and depending on how much you do, it can be up to 30 days. I've
Absolutely.
seen some people who had problems passing the test even longer than 30 days. I thought, Lord have mercy, you got a problem. I mean, I don't know how you can afford to have it that bad.
Expensive habit. Absolutely.
But at any rate, it's just, I forgot where I was going with that, but it's crazy what people don't understand, and misconstrue when you try to get them to get involved. And like talking about the whole coming out of the closet thing,
Absolutely.
we're just talking about telling people what you believe and how you feel. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
So have y'all got any plans for any new products coming up?
Oh, right now we're really just hammering down on the mini Quinn. We got into a big chain store, the Green Solution, recently, along with the rest of
Cool.
our, distribution lanes and whatnot. Who've, went mini. They want to get some mini blunts up in there, so we're really happy about that. So this year is really just the year of the mini Quinns, high class mini ass blunt, and then the next year we're going to be kind of figuring out a few more things. But as we get more finance into the company, more smart brains other than myself, we're going to be doing more things. But right now it's the high class big ass blunt and the high class mini ass blunt.
Cool. Cool. So tell our listeners before we go where, plug your business. Where can they find you when they come to Colorado?
Absolutely. So the first thing you're going to do is go to gentlemanquinns.com so you can see the whole array of dispensaries we're in, depending on what part of the state. We're throughout Colorado at this point, and it's awesome to say because when I was there with you before, we were in a few spots. Now we're all over the state. We're selling out. We're doing our
Cool
thing,
deal.
and we're part of the larger cannabis industry now. So you definitely want to go to our website, gentlemanquinns.com. You can follow us on social media under that name, or you could go to social media under mini Qs, where you can find about the mini Quinns. But yeah, we have a bunch of dispensaries. Definitely our flagship store is Simply Pure, headed by Wanda James, one of the biggest advocates in all of cannabis. One of my I'm one of her biggest fans. So Simply Pure dispensary, THC, which is another woman-owned dispensary, incredible folks there. Smokies as well. Smokies 420 out east. I don't want to miss anybody. We got a lot of dispensaries now, so but like I said, the mini Quinns are going to be in the Green Solution, which is a more ubiquitous dispensary out here. So we're all over the place. So just go to gentlemanquinns.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. I think we're doing a TikTok now. So
Oh, Lord.
follow how we're trying to figure that out.
That's one I haven't done yet.
That's a tricky one. So I got to find like a college student to help out. But you can find us on social media.
Cool deal. Cool deal. Well, I want to thank you again, Jarell, for coming on and joining us. It's been
You
fun
ain't got
as
to thank me.
always.
Thank you. This is amazing.
I appreciate that, and I want to thank all our listeners for joining us here on the Lone Star Collective.